Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is I'm looking at the date up there, and there's definitely a typo. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. It is We Need to Know Wednesday, and I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, as I do often, but today it's very important that we get as many people as possible to tune into this topic. It's a topic that should kind of be a no-brainer for those that have influence in this space. But we're talking about using the mass budget, and we'll delve a little bit into the participatory process right here locally in Boston. But using the budget, municipal state budget, as a tool for racial equity. There's been a lot of movement with folks like BECMA, these two organizations that are represented here. Both of these wonderful queens. We'll talk about the collaboration between their organizations and a few others that are really moving to ensure that the investments that need to be made in the state and the city of Boston are done through the budget. You can tell an administration's and electeds' priorities by the budget, by their budget priorities. And so we're going to have a very interesting conversation this morning. I am excited to bring into the room two wonderful queens that are doing great work around equity. The first is Marie Francis. We are Boston While Black co-members. And this has been a little bit of a long time coming, but I think it is so apropos that we bring them in. We're going to talk about the budget conference and things like that. We're going to learn a lot today. So without further ado, I would like to bring into the Java Cafe Marie Francis Rivera and also Shanique Spalding. Marie is she's the president of Mass Budget, and Shanique is also the executive director of the Mass Voter Table. And so good morning to both of you. Marie, I'll ask you to introduce yourself first, say good morning. And if you could end your introduction with describing the municipal and state budget process when it comes to communities' participation in one word.
In one word.
In one word.
Okay.
Good morning.
I had a word pop into my mind. Good morning. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm so glad that we finally made this happen. And we're in the thick of budget season, so no better time to be talking about this important issue. As you mentioned, my name is Marie Francis Rivera. I'm the president of the Massachusetts Budget and Policy Center. Just really quickly, the Massachusetts Budget Policy Center, we're a nonprofit. We've been around for 35 years. We focus on 4 different things. One is really creating an anti-racist state budget here in Massachusetts. The next is looking at tax justice, and tax justice being racial justice. We also look at policy issues around economic security. And lastly, and we'll talk about this a bit, and we do this work with Shanique, it's around inclusive democracy, building a democracy where people have the information that they need, that the processes are inclusive, that they're able to really have their voices be heard and included in decision making. So with that being said, one word to summarize the state budget process. Was that what the question was?
From a perspective of access to information, as you said, and the inclusion of the welcoming and inclusion of community. And if you want to delve a little bit deeper in the BIPOC and a little bit deeper, Black folks. What in one word?
Exclusive.
Okay, we'll get some context.
rather than inclusive. That's what popped.
Okay, we're going to get some context in just a few minutes. We want to allow Shanique to greet the folks as well. Tell us a little bit also about your organization, and I will ask you to also and your introduction with one word in the same context.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on, Jimmy. My name is Shanique Spalding. I am the executive director for the Massachusetts Voter Table, which is a statewide organization, a part of a national entity called State Voices. We're super focused on voting rights. And we are actually a coalition organization that's also a nonprofit like Mass Budget. Our table integrates nonpartisan voter engagement with grassroots organizing. We have about 50 or so partners that are grassroots organizations across the state. We fight for resources and representation and power for communities of color. We have 3 core principles, and that's to build the capacity and leadership of our coalition members. We increase voter participation by building power in our communities of color and low-income communities. And we are also focused on advancing a collective agenda for racial and economic justice, which is why Marie Francis and I work a lot together. So that's a little bit about our organization. We could chat a little bit more in the conversation about how our groups are on the ground in this work. But to answer your question, I would say that it is one word. You making it hard this morning. I mean, hard. Let's go with difficult. I'm gonna go with difficult.
Okay. And so, Marie, you said exclusive. Give me the context around exclusive, and then we'll jump into maybe some of the reasons why and why both of your organizations and these coalitions exist for the purpose of access to information and not being exclusive. And so give me some context to exclusive.
Sure. So I'll give you a bit of context, just explaining the process a little bit so you can get kind of a flavor of how the state budget, which is the biggest piece of legislation that goes through Beacon Hill every year. This year, it's looking like it's going to be a $56 billion state budget. So it's huge and has huge ramifications for the health of our communities and the well-being of our communities, right? So the way that the budget process typically goes in a given year is that there's the governor essentially kicks off a year, typically in January, but this year, because Maura was sworn in her new term, she actually put her budget proposal forward in March. So the governor puts their budget proposal forward in March, and then after that, and I don't know if I can share, but I do have a little graphic, but I'm happy to just also talk through it. But about in mid-April, then the House gets to weigh in to basically, respond to the governor's budget proposal that they put in. Then the Senate gets to weigh in. And currently where we're at in the budget process is that 3 members of the House and 3 members of the Senate get together and hash out the differences in both of their proposals. So that's where we're at right now, which is called the conference committee. So we recently put out a piece looking at just the differences and where they have to make decisions one way or another. And we titled the piece 6 things that need to be decided that have impacts on racial justice in our community. So we highlighted some of those. So
it's exclusive because
it's exclusive because there are points in the process where there are hearings, budget hearings. Our Senator Liz Miranda actually held a hearing several months back where there was community input, but the process is pretty, most people don't know about the process, and it's difficult to engage in the process. And, toward the end of the process, when, hard decisions have to be made, it's 6 people essentially in a room making the decision.
So that is exclusive. And I'll just come out and ask, is the majority of them white males, typically?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just checking in.
Yeah. And so then when they end up hashing it out, that group of folks, then it gets sent to the governor's desk. The governor can veto what she needs to veto. It gets sent back, and then ultimately the governor signs off. Yeah.
Okay. And Shanique, you said difficult, and that Marie definitely gave some context. And just folks that are tuning in, we are talking about the budget process, and this is something we definitely need to pay attention to. And so please make sure you share this. And so Shanique, you said difficult. In addition to what Marie said about the process, the conference and things, why did you specifically say it's difficult?
I think it's more difficult for folks to understand, right? As part of the voter tables work and why we work with grassroots partners is because we do year-round civic engagement. And really what that means is we get out there and talk to community about what's going on and all of the things that impact their lives, especially when it comes to local and statewide government.
Yep.
But how much do we understand about how any of this works, right?
That part. Yep.
Yeah. And so folks look, and especially the budget process. I don't think anyone knows how money moves in the state, how money moves in the local government, and how decisions get made about what we fund and what we don't fund, or what we fund a little bit of versus a lot, right? And what impacts those. And so that in itself, the lack of knowledge about how any of that works becomes difficult for people to access, and it feels very exclusive because there aren't all these entities, especially the ones that hold the power to do this work, explaining to everyday people how this even works, right?
Yep. And that's the point why we're here. And I think to Marie's point, this is, I was a little concerned about the time and getting you guys scheduled, but I think that this is actually, let me back up, coming on the show and informing the folks, that's always a perfect time. But as Shanique said, some of the organization, I don't want to get in trouble. Well, this isn't a paid appearance, so I'm gonna say what I want to say. Some of the organizations, some of our elected officials, not just those that are Black and brown, but those that serve Black and brown communities and have those large constituencies, I would believe that it would be a priority for them to make sure that what we're doing right now is done often within their districts. I just, that's something that I would believe. And so thank you both for ending with those both words around exclusive and difficult. And so it's so interesting that our topic is talking about the state budget as a vehicle for racial equity. And both of your words to describe that vehicle are exclusive and difficult. Interesting. Shanique, I'll start with you in this piece here. How do we use the state budget as a vehicle for racial equity? You said a few minutes ago, to everyday people, layman's terms. That's one of the goals of this platform. Break it down like you talking to your auntie and them about how we use the state budget as a vehicle.
So, everyday people are paying taxes, right? Yep. And those tax dollars are collected in the pool of money at the state level and at the local level, right? And the idea is that those tax dollars get divided among things like education, transportation, housing, these areas that impact our lives. And so, because these are your dollars going to the state level, the people you elect or you choose to elect to represent your community, your district, is supposed to sit at that table every year and take that pool of money and make decisions about where those fundings go. And with having access to your legislator and building relationship on the local level and your statewide leaders, you get to have conversations about, okay, we have this school in our community that needs repairs. We have roads and bridges that need repairs. We have teachers that are underpaid in our district, and we want to see funding directly into that bucket of money around this many dollars to do that. But how is it a vehicle for racial equity? It's a vehicle for racial equity because these dollars impact communities of color.
Come.
And we have the largest populations in some of the largest areas of our state, the gateway cities. Gateway cities, there's about 20 or so of those, right?
Just a couple examples for folks that don't know what gateway cities are.
And so gateway cities are places like Boston, Springfield, Worcester, Lawrence, Lynn, Lowell, Salem.
Folks tend to be populated with
people of color.
Okay.
These are our folks, right? Largest populations, but often underfunded. And so how do we get those dollars into those communities, providing the equity that they need to live healthy, happy, whole, holistic lives? That people have jobs, that they have access to good roads, good transportation, that their kids are going to good schools. All of those things are impacted on how those dollars get divvied up and who those dollars go to.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. Marie, I'm going to ask you to jump in here in the context, if you can address or extend anything that Shanique said.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting to me that we have to have an organization in place and understand the sentiment of what I'm saying here. An organization had to be created to ensure that constituents and everyday voters, based on what Shanique just said about what elected officials, I try to stay away from the word should, because sometimes it implies if they're not doing that, then the opposite is wrong. But one would believe that we would not need an organization to do this. Respond to Shanique, add to, and in the context of why do we need an organization to ensure that this happens?
Yes, I agree with you. I think I think our government and our democracy could be improved, right? To just include people and give people the information. And part of the reason, why organizations like Mass Budget, like the voter table were formed is because people were not getting access to the information. And sometimes that's intentional, right? Based on the way that our democracy started and continues to evolve.
Yep.
So it is, I believe it is super important for people to get the information that they need. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and then maybe Shanique can riff on this. So in 2018-19, now my brain is getting foggy pre-pandemic, the Student Opportunity Act was a huge piece of legislation that passed. And basically what the Student Opportunity Act said is that for K through 12 schools, that funding was distributed unequally. Basically, that it wasn't going to poor districts in the way that it needed to go to poor districts and poor kids. So this law was passed, and it basically said that billions of new dollars were going to go into schools. I think most of the average person might not even know that happened, which is important information to get out there. We talk about it a lot. So basically, over 7 years, billions of new dollars were going to go to places like New Bedford, places like Springfield, right, into their school districts. So that's important information to know, right? Because if you're a parent and you're a student in that city, you can say, hey, this law passed, 4 years ago. I want to see my education improve in my school, whatever. When that was passed, it was basically unfunded. So they passed it, and they didn't really have a revenue stream, a tax stream to pay for it. So basically what organizations like the Voter Table, other faith-based organizations like MCAN, that's part of our Delivering on Equity collective that we formed, we can talk about, said, okay, we know that we need tax revenue to actually pay for the Student Opportunity Act, to pay for fixing our bridges. And last November on the ballot, there was a question about a millionaire's tax to fund education and to fund transportation, which passed in November 2022. So now a lot of the work that we're doing is, okay, we have this new revenue. We know we have these laws that basically are pushing for more equitable distribution of funding. Now we need to make sure that people are informed about these things so that we can do the advocacy needed to ensure that that money lands in our communities.
I just thank you earlier. I meant to say thank you for going over the process piece of how the budget happens, because that is important to know as well. It just often baffles me when I ask you the piece about why these organizations exist. I know why, but I was intentional about that because, again, on the point of our elected officials and ensuring that everyday folks are informed, it is so interesting to just wonder why the alarm is not sounding earlier, because we're at the end of the budget conference. Am I correct?
We're getting toward the end of this.
Most of electeds, different subcommittees and priorities, they're pretty much already set. And so now we have to make sure that folks have the information. May at some point y'all send me a post, circle back and say, Jimmy, post this, tell your folks to call their legislators, and these are the priorities. We're going to get into some of the 6 areas that are good indicators in the budget, Marie, in a second. But Shanique, I wanted to ask you a little bit. We're talking majorly about the mass budget state level here. I've seen some interesting post stories in reference to Boston's new participatory budget process. Where we've that, I know the coalition is a state agency, but gateway cities, Boston's the capital of Massachusetts. Let's just be 100. Boston tends to get a lot of shine, and other cities in the state don't. Just be 100. And so, from your perspective, what's going on in a local area?
So in 2021, Boston actually worked on what's called participatory budget.
Yep.
Now, this is something a lot of communities are starting to adopt across the state in different local communities. And what that is giving an opportunity to community to control certain portions of those dollars that come into the municipal budget. And by municipal, I just mean your city,
Local city. Yep.
your city
Or
budget.
town.
And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
so your town
a
budget.
lot of towns already have a participatory budget. When you're in a smaller town, it's easy to have,
Okay.
you know,
Thank you for
your
that
townsfolk
clarity.
come
Yep.
together and
Yep.
let's hash out how we want to spend money. In
Mhm.
cities, a little bit more complicated. How do we get, you know, cities with 250,000 or
Yeah.
how many people to come to City Hall to talk about every dollar? That's a little bit difficult to do. But participatory budget allows those large cities to have a fraction of the budget, certain amount of the money, to say these dollars community will get to decide how that goes.
And what's the number of by legislation in Boston? What's that number?
So by legislation, community had asked for $10 million to be what the pocket of money is that community could work with. So after passing it in 2021, we're now at the implementation process. And it did pass with 70% favorability. 100% of the council, including our current mayor, supported participatory budget. In that conversation, they also supported lowering Boston PD's budget.
Yep.
In the process,
which is a point of contention right
I'm
now.
creating this context of 2021 to let's just
Paint
bring
the
you to where
picture,
we are
sis.
now.
Paint the picture.
To bring you to where we are now. I'm saying those things for a reason. So recently, we are now also in Boston at the aspect of getting this done. Okay, we're at the budgeting process locally as well. And on Friday, Mayor Wu, you know, vetoed some of the amendments that community was asking for because she said instead of 10 million, we're going to do 2 million to participatory budget. And community said we wanted 10 million, right? And what happened is that she proposed also an increase to Boston PD's budget, different from what she had said before, bringing Boston PD's budget up to $404 million. And this is directly in contrast to her previous stance in 2020 when we were all talking about participatory budget, when she supported defunding police and 1% for participatory budget as a candidate as mayor is what she said. And so we are seeing a contrast. Today, there is a city council meeting to discuss this, right? And so we have been asking with our community partners, and we have community partners on the ground who are really working on this in East Boston, Roxbury, Dorchester, Hyde Park,
Yep.
and Mattapan and Chinatown, which we have groups in those areas that are really working on participatory budget. We're asking folks to call their city council members before this meeting at noon to basically tell them to pass the final budget with our amendments for an increase in participatory budget, and to also, name that, increasing Boston PD's budget is not, what this community needs right now, that we need to shift those funding in other places, and to hold the mayor accountable to her campaign stance and what she was saying when she was in city council.
Amount of 10 million. I want to put that note in there in case folks pop on and see. Y'all take a screenshot. Call your city councilor and call them before noon, even if you have to hop off here early, and tell them, call your city councilor and request they pass or vote for. I'll edit that in a minute, but pass or vote for pass the budget that includes the participatory budget amount of $10 million. That is the ask. That is the action that we're asking the Java fam and everybody that's in the comments and liking and whatnot to make a call. If you live in the city of Boston, make a call to your city councilor to be sure that they do that, and also to decrease. And this is not a unknown request, but also decrease the amount of the BPD budget as well. I was one, just to be very transparent, I didn't say defund the police. If there's a car accident, if there's something going on, what's the first thing we're going to do? Call 911. But we need to redirect funding when it comes to BPD. And so I'm just going to leave that right there. Marie, a lot of the guiding when dealing with collaborators and coalitions, there's often, agendas aren't bad things, but there are different agendas. Some, focus directly on housing, and some focus directly on health equity and things like that. But you all have sort of some guiding, not principles, but there are 6 areas in which this coalition have agreed upon to us, I guess, sort of measure or filter how the state's budget is being used as a vehicle toward racial equity. What are those 6 areas?
Sure. So one thing to mention too is that Mass Budget, we do a lot of policy analysis, budget analysis, we do a lot of research, we do everything in partnership with coalitions, including, all the partners at the voter table, all the partners at MCAN. So when we, share different priorities, they're always coming from the coalitions that we sit at the tables and assist with analysis and things. So what we decided to do for this budget cycle, something we've never done before, because we've typically done pretty by the numbers budget analysis, if you will, like this has gone up, this has gone down. But based on, we have 5 analysts on our team. We have analysts that focus on education. We have analysts that focus on housing. We selected, and this is not comprehensive, but we selected 6 things that are being negotiated now that we think are going to impact racial justice. So I'll talk about that. We also put a survey link so that if people have other line items, other priorities that they think are important for racial justice, they can go ahead and fill out the survey. Let us know. We're going to synthesize that information. So one of the things that we said is important because, and it might not be the thing that pops to the top of all of our minds, is for the state to have the ability to collect racial and ethnic data, for that to be funded at higher levels. Because the thing is, we say that we want an anti-racist budget. We say that we, want the budget to move forward racial justice. But if we don't have the numbers, if we don't even know where that money's going, if we don't know who that money's going to,
Absolutely.
then we do not have the ability to understand what $56 billion every year is.
Everything else, everything else goes to committee for study and research. So why can't we? Well, never mind. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Number 2.
So we need those stats. Another policy that we think is critically important and being debated is around funding in-state tuition for undocumented students.
Okay.
So in many, many other states, undocumented students have access to in-state tuition level for public colleges and universities. That's not the case here in Massachusetts. And so it's excluding undocumented students from that educational opportunity at rates that they can afford. Another item that we put in was around a housing reentry program. So I'm going to read the detail here so I don't get it wrong, but it's a pilot program that would basically provide housing services to individuals who are often locked out of receiving housing aid because of prior convictions.
Absolutely.
So that's something that's being debated and we'd like to see funded. Also, things around childcare subsidies. As we know, Massachusetts has the top highest childcare costs in the nation. And so it's extremely expensive. Anyone with kids, I have a 6-year-old, paying for daycare, extremely expensive. So any amount of money that we can get into childcare vouchers is really going to improve people's situation. We know that people struggle to get vouchers. And another piece, and this affects more so the communities outside of the Boston area, but there's the MBTA, which has its challenges, but also has funding. But the regional transit authorities around the state, in the Merrimack Valley, down in the South Coast, have been chronically underfunded since they've been created. And communities around the Commonwealth have been asking for more funding for the regional transit authorities, the buses, so that they have the ability. Some municipalities have made buses free, and including Boston, but in other areas of the state, and they've seen that people ride them more, that they're able to access childcare, medical appointments.
Better access. Yep.
So funding those at levels that we can provide fare free transportation, or have it go, run in hours that actually work for people. So those are some of the things that we highlighted.
Okay. As we get ready to wrap up, Shanique, is there anything? There is one action, and Kristen, thank you for posting this. It's hyperlinked for those that are watching live. You can hyperlink and get information about your city councilor, the phone number to call as well. Heidi Ivy, I saw your comment. I'll text you later. No, I'm messing. I mean, it is anybody that observes know that the mayor and I have a relationship. And it is, I've seen some of the stuff in media, and it is just interesting to see that, stance at one point in time. And then now, got to give credence. It's not cap, as the young people say. You don't, when you get, a counselor is one thing. And then when you get in, presumably you have more information in that top role, in that top space or whatever. But that is a $8 million difference. And, it can be perceived very interestingly so with increasing the police budget, where the demands, to Shanique's point about constituencies and voters and residents, they've set the priority for what they want, for what they believe is a better legislative process toward the budget for their desired equitable quality of life. Shaniqua, any closing statements, anything that we missed, any action that folks need to? Marie, and both of you can do, folks that watch know I do stuff organically. Links, websites, anything that I can post here, just put it in a private chat. Marie, I think you mentioned a survey. If you put the link in there, we can put it in the comments as well to make sure that we have as much participation from folks as possible. Shanique, any closing remarks?
Yes. We talked about this being very external and difficult process. But what I want to remind people is these folks that we elect locally and statewide work for you. You are their boss.
Hold on. I need to get that because, the team they've been pulling out screen captures for reels and stuff. So center yourself over a little bit and say that again.
So I said that we've talked about this process being difficult or exclusionary, but I want to remind folks that elected officials, folks who are elected on the local and statewide level, are elected to represent you, and that you are their bosses. You pay their salaries. You have a right to have conversations with them and hold them accountable. Now, we have a lot of legislators that we love, the ones that we wish would do better, and doing those jobs are difficult jobs for real, right? How do we make decisions that will be good for all when so many people differ on where they stand on issues?
And let's keep it 100. Good people for all, but also good for what they perceive for them to be current elected officials and not former.
Right.
It's a reality. If we're
that is true. But the way that people get away with not doing what community needs is community forgets to hold them accountable. And that accountability means that you need to call these people, that you need to sit down and have meetings. You don't need to know what's going on. You could go to your legislator and say, I want to schedule a meeting because I want to know what you're working on right now. Talk to me about what you're working on. Here's what I'm looking for in my community. You can do that. Their information is public. MassGov have all of their contact information. Your city councilors, their addresses, their contact information, their emails are public. They live in your community. So do your state legislators. They live somewhere down the street, around the corner, around the block. They go to the same grocery stores as you. You can find them and have conversations with them. So don't forget that you have power in this process. And you also have power in the ballot box on election day to remove them if they have not done right by your community and by your family. So I just want to say that these are not extra beings with all these superpowers that you can never touch. You can touch that. You can touch that. But it's up to us to know to do that. Some links I'm going to share with you again. It's just to reiterate that today we're talking about participatory budget in Boston at the city council meeting at noon. And we're asking that they include, $10 million for participatory budget with $1.1 million for mental health crisis response, and that those investments, that $10 million is going directly into BIPOC communities. So please contact your city council members via email, by phone, leave a message, let them know that that's what you want them to do. I'll also share with you the voter table website, specifically the link that links to our partners. So you could see what grassroots organizations that are a member of the voter table that's local to you, that you could get connected with to either get involved in the work that they're doing central to your community, and the work that they're doing statewide to advocate for voting rights and better economic justice for our communities.
Wow, that was a mic drop.
Hand grab and then double it. Okay. Marie, close it.
That was a mic drop. I think we should have given Shanique the last word on that. I don't know.
I'm sitting up there. I was looking for, I don't have a little organ track or whatnot to back up behind you when you was preaching there, but I just want to make sure that folks know and see that we did put a couple of links. This is the survey that Marie referred to in reference to if you have some priorities. And also this is the information for you to find out what's at stake as far as the fiscal year 24 budget. I just wanted to mention we're in 23 and we're referring to the fiscal. Is it fiscal year 24?
It's fiscal year 24. So essentially, it gets decided for the start of the fiscal year.
That's right, but
it's in the summer of this year, so it will go from 23 to 24.
But I thought in that case, isn't it fiscal year 25? I don't want to confuse the people.
It's fiscal year
24 next year. I got my years mixed up.
It ends. Yeah.
Excuse me. I got my years mixed up.
So it starts in the summer of 23 and ends in the summer.
I got it. Where my confusion is that I thought this was 2024. Okay. So
you're living in the future, Jimmy. You are.
Future that is geared and funded for racial equity.
Exactly.
We're going to come back in a year and see what happens. But what Marie, what are your
I just want to double down on what Shanique said. It's, it's helpful to know the processes. It's helpful to have numbers, but also your experience in community and your experience living in your city and town and what you're seeing and what your family's experiencing. That number one is what we need to be paying attention to. So I just double down on everything Shanique said. Reach out to your state senator, to your rep. We can give a link on who those folks are too in your community. We have their phone numbers. We have their email address. Many of them have staff people too, that their entire role is to be out in community and to be listening and connecting with people, to help people with little things, but also to include people's voices in policymaking. So
I appreciate both of you being here. This is it's interesting because sometimes, if I'm just going to go ahead and say, if there was a sort of if I had a entertainer, or I was fussing and cussing about something or issue, views, everything would be on or just ridiculous. But something like this, yes, I am fussing a little bit, that we really need to be intentional when we recognize the intentional barriers. And then when folks like you all are working to get that sort of proverbial window open that, kind of opened wider post George Floyd, folks going through it need to be looking along the hue of all three of us here, and so it is important. Folks, share this, tag people with this. It's important to you. If you flush your toilet, the city budget is important to you. If you have children, the city and the state budget is important to you. If you have children in education, the city and state budget is important to you. If you drive and use a stoplight, the budget is important to you. So this is a priority for us. Please pay attention. Go to these links that are in the comments. Tag folks, share this. If you're watching this in the after time, share this as well, and check the links in the comment. I want to make sure that I put everything up here. Here is also the information for you to find your legislator. Kristen earlier posted the information for you to get the contact information for your local city councilor. We just put in the comments also. Kristen, so we have it, but y'all got it double there. Kristen just posted it. Thank you, Kristen. Kristen just posted it there. And also
Kristen.
Maria saying hi to Kristen. And Shanique, you gonna say hi too?
Oh, thanks, Kristen.
Hey. Hey.
No, I seriously appreciate this. And yes, I was fussing a little bit because there's so much that goes against us with fighting poverty, with fighting the economy, with fighting coming out of the endemic and everything that Black and brown folks go through, and single moms and single dads go through. I just think it's important to also, just as much as possible, to encourage folks when they get that second, take 30 seconds and make that call, rather than spending 30 seconds on TikTok or whatever, or well, anyway, I'm not going to get in trouble. I really appreciate both of y'all being here this morning. And please keep me abreast, send me information. There'll be some downtime in the next couple of weeks or so, but if you get me some information, I and or the team will make sure that we get it out and post it, links, flyers, whatever we got to do. And let's figure out how, when this process starts for fiscal year 25, how we get y'all back early. I'll even be willing to convene an in-person something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a
Mm-hmm.
little half-day
Mm-hmm.
budget summit. Like, when do they start the budget process? What month?
January. Well, it technically starts in December because that's when they decide how big the budget's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
The consensus revenue estimate.
So sometime in around October, we may need to convene to get, this isn't a state level election year. So they just got elected last year, correct?
Yeah. So this year is your local elections.
Local
city council, school committees.
So we'll know who to contact if we get together in October and have a little half-day summit, or maybe early November, because I already got something planned for October and I want the team to kill me. Let's maybe right after the election.
Yeah.
The city. So y'all seen it here a couple of weeks after. Oh, Natasha White.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Natasha. She's gonna get me because I got her. Anyway, and let's just celebrate this queen as well. I don't care. I can get in trouble. A lot of what the city did get ready to do when they did that tour with the budget process for the local city. Guess who one of the major pushers and ideas behind that was? Natasha.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Natasha. I love you, sis.
Flowers.
Y'all gonna make me cuss. But no, we need to come together right after the election, do a little half-day summit. And if we can figure in how we do city and state, maybe a little bit on the city. I don't know how, but they were on the same time frame. July 1st through June 30th. That's both of their fiscal years. Mm-hmm. So somewhere between election and Thanksgiving, we'll get the space and we'll have a conversation, figure out what the workshops are.
We've actually been brainstorming on this.
Yeah. And we also, for our partners at the table, Mass Budget and our field team does a training for our community partners.
But there's something already in place.
Yeah. How that process works. So doing that education piece. So that's what we do. And we make sure we give that knowledge to our community partners who bring that to community as well, because they are the trusted faces and the neighbors that people know. So we're happy to come back. We're happy to bring some of our partners too locally to just share, what they're working on, and also, why this is important and how people can start plugging themselves into the process locally and statewide early.
And can I do a 2-minute plug on something else that's happening that I think is really important?
Give me about
a 2-minute plug. So like I said, in November 2022, the Fair Share Amendment passed. Mm-hmm. It basically said we're going to fund income over $1 million, an additional 4%. And it's going to raise about $1 to $2 billion of new revenue that can be used for education, transportation every single year. Yep. In January, when the Healy-Driscoll administration came in, they put forth a tax cut package, a proposal to the tune of close to $1 billion to cut the estate tax that targets very wealthy people. But they also included a child and family tax credit that would benefit, families across the Commonwealth, a pretty big package. The House put forth a proposal, slightly smaller size to begin with, then phases in pretty big. And the Senate recently put forward a tax cut package that also has tax cuts that would benefit wealthy business owners and wealthy folks, but also include some things in there for working class families. So I just want people to be aware that that is also part of this debate. Mm-hmm. That is very important, because any permanent tax cuts that pass would impact the impact of the Fair Share Amendment that was passed in November, and it would impact the investments going directly to our communities.
I mean, it seemed like in your description, it sound with the process, they did it in a manner that it seems like it's a little give and take. Okay, you know, we're going to be favorable with these cuts toward the rich, and we'll put a little something in there for those who aren't rich. But just when you said that, it's almost as far as if we get this extra $1 billion or 1 point whatever $billion with the new legislation that passed at the end of the year, doing tax cuts that would almost be almost that same amount to me, almost
Jimmy,
no.
make it make sense.
It's some of this stuff, and this isn't about person. I said the other day, there's some stuff. I move in the space of violence prevention and whatnot, and some of what I'm seeing in the perpetual things in the system moves beyond the personalities. We get frustrated with the current personality because they're the one in the role that we perceive that can fix this systemic thing right now in the moment. This is systemic stuff. And it does not make sense, because here again, what I heard from you was the rich is looking out for the rich. The rich is the one that's able to pick up the phone and call the legislator and say, hey, that donation I made.
They know how it works. But I'm trying to tell our people, ain't nobody gonna advocate better for us than us.
Ourselves. And Tito said at Chuck Turner's funeral, the cavalry is not coming. All right. We
gotta save ourselves. And we have to and we can't rest. We passed it and we thought,
hold on.
We done.
Hold on. Somebody that moves in the mental health space and whatnot. No, we gotta rest. We have to rest. And to be ready for the next day and to stay in the fight to which you were. And so I know what you mean.
The rest that I mean is taking our eye off of it. Like off the thing, like we're done now. But anybody, I know what anybody can take what you have. And so you always have to keep an eye on that. And so that's what Marie Francis and the voter table partners are doing now, is just making sure that we shore up those dollars and make sure that we are continuing to protect those dollars and to protect the vote that, community has made. But we have to continue to have those conversations. It can't just be our groups. It can't just be the community groups. It also has to be community as well.
Individual voters. This goes to the thing of my vote don't count, not just in the booth. Your vote and your voice counts in this budget. All right, y'all get off my screen.
Yep.
Because
we got you fired up, Jimmy. Good.
Because there's the thing of the things that keep us out that aggravate me and have this passion now. But then there's this also piece of when folks like y'all create the wedge, we need to be jumping through that thing, increasing the wedge, shoring it up, as you said, Shanika, a few minutes ago. And so, y'all let me know, and I'll have the team follow up about what we're going to do in November. There's also Jaron Chang and them from Gen Unity. There's Eric Leslie and them from Union Capital. And so these coalitions and whatnot are powerful, as long as we may have different agendas. But if we can centralize around 2 or 3 points, when we come together, there is more power in numbers. And y'all have a wonderful day. I'm going to go give some after show commentary. I got a couple of bills to pay, I think. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
I appreciate both of y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Listen, y'all better make sure that y'all share this and keep folks informed about what's going on with this thing, because just a couple of things. Don't forget, on Friday at 5:30, 5:30, Lord Jesus, 5:30 p.m., we are having the Healthy 617 campaign launch and celebration for the young people. I will get that flyer out. I just have to get the link finished so y'all can register. Also, there will not be, I don't think, I may bring something and set up my phone to go live, but I will be a part of the Castle Group, the Mass State News Service, participating about media on a panel tomorrow that begins at 8:30 a.m. And so we will not, right now, there will not be programming tomorrow morning. And so that is Thursday. There will not be programming on Monday and Tuesday. The next time we'll be together is on Wednesday, January 5th, with the Honorable Mayor Michelle Wu. And so we'll check in about this budget piece. And a few other things as well, the NAACP convention. And so the next time that we will be back together in the Java Cafe will be next Wednesday, July 5th. There will be some pre-records uploaded for Monday and Tuesday. I may put one up for tomorrow as well. And so live, we will not be together again until Wednesday, July 5th at 9 a.m. All right, everybody have a wonderful day, and we will see you Wednesday, July 5th, if not tomorrow, going live from the panel about around media. And that's it. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I appreciate all of you, and we will talk with you soon. And I got to remember to go change the date because it is not Wednesday, June 298, 2023. All right. Have a great day, everybody. I appreciate it.